Hello, dear seekers of truth and light. This video is entitled John Newbrough, the False Prophet, June, September 1883, Scams Backfiring. And I guess I could call every video that title because Mr. Newbrough was constantly being dishonest about just about everything he ever did, everything he ever said. So nothing new there. I can't really say there was one particular thing in this video. It's a potpourri, a variety of different things that went wrong, and it's based on his bad words and bad actions of the past. People are figuring out in those days that this guy is really not to be trusted, and that's why Oahspe sales went down. Remember, the plan was to have Oahspe sales finance the kindergarten schools, but that all went away when Newbrough started his Egyptian ceremonies, which made people think the Oahspe movement was crazy and even evil. And of course, running off with a 32-year-old, a woman who's 32 years younger than you, leaving your wife and children, doesn't help your movement either. And of course, he was got like 5 different ways he explained how he channeled Oahspe in the first place, which means he was lying about it the whole time. And it doesn't help that what you put into Oahspe was both satanic in the Safa book and racist in the Book of Lords. Let's see what happens. We have April 1883, June 30th, and this is an editorial, an article by a Mr. J.M. Roberts. He is the chief editor of the periodical, the newspaper called Mind and Matter, which is a spiritualism, new thought work. It's very cutting edge for spirituality, where people are looking to get away from false religions. And so basically this fine gentleman is calling Dr. Newbrough out for creating a false religion. I quote, "The benevolent efforts of some respectable people connected at one time with the Oahspe movement, rendered abortive by the tyrannical rulings of the all-light-inspiring Dr. Newbrough, has condemned spiritualism and instead has replaced it by reviving the rites and ceremonies devised by crafty priests during the darkness and superstition of past ages." He's speaking, of course, of the Egyptian rites, which Newbrough says are the greatest rites and ceremonies this world has ever seen. And he's basically an objective observer of the times, and you don't get this story from Newbrough's people. This kind of thing was hushed up. I think most of the people who have been lifelong faiths never even heard of Newbrough's Egyptian ceremonies, but of course he says it right in the first few pages of Oahspe that he was inspired to use Egyptian rites. Okay, I'm going to quote a little more. Same newspaper article. "Large sums of money invested in the production of such a fizzle as the Oahspe, the benevolent efforts of some respectable people connected at one time with the movement, rendered abortive by the tyrannical rulings of the all-light-inspiring Dr. Newbrough. And through it all, only one prominent figure, Dr. Newbrough, asserting, assuming, controlling, and preaching in the name of a mystical Jehovah, this regenerating impostor, which he calls the second advent of modern spiritualism, and which he claims to be instituted by spiritual agencies so high that they are called gods, and to be much more divine, pure, and powerful than those who are concerned in and have originated in the movement which is called modern spiritualism, and which the doctor calls the first advent. So there has been a conflict, unnecessary conflict set up by Mr. Newbrough between spiritualism and Oahspe, which is ridiculous. If anything, there should be cooperation, harmony between them, since spiritualism seeks to establish that there are heavens above, which are a continuation of life here. You don't have to be a Christian to enter heaven. You don't have to be a Muslim to enter the heavens. You can simply become a good person, which is what Oahspe teaches. So, but because Newbrough wants to be the boss of everything, he condemns them. I'd like to go ahead and give some more quotes. Soon after the appearance of this puzzling volume, Dr. Newbrough began the organization of a Oahspe Lodge for the purpose of instructing the people at large in what he called the Egyptian rites and ceremonies. Curiosity at first attracted a number of respectable persons who, after an exhibition of his knowledge in Egyptian and other ancient mystic culture, retired forever, greatly disappointed. A certain number, however, believing themselves the chosen of Jehovah in this wonderful scheme for universal regeneration, kept faithful for a while to his inspired representative and consciously went through the hocus pocus of initiation in the different degrees as ordained by the All-Light. So people gave up. They looked at these rites and they said, this is crazy, I'm getting out of here. Others were told they're the chosen of Jehovah, and that's a common deceptive strategy. You tell the people they're chosen, and of course Masons believe they are the chosen ones. J.M. Roberts continues, soon after the appearance of this puzzling volume, Dr. Newbrough began the organization of an Oahspe Lodge for the purpose of instructing the people at large in what he called the Egyptian rites and ceremonies. Curiosity at first attracted a number of respectable persons who, after an exhibition of his knowledge in Egyptian and other ancient mystic culture, retired forever, greatly disappointed. A certain number, however, believing themselves the chosen of Jehovah in this wonderful scheme for universal regeneration, kept faithful for a while to his inspired representative and conscientiously went through the hocus pocus of initiation in the different degrees as ordained by the All-Light. So, again, the world at large sees Newbrough promoting Oahspe through the Egyptian rites, which is totally whack. Why would you do that? The Egyptian rites are not the key to the path of Oahspe. In fact, it's the opposite. The Egyptian rites, run by the false gods? Is that what we want Oahspe to be? I mean, that alone should tell everyone who is a faithist in current days, who's an Oahspe reader, that Newbrough was out of his gourd. This is not what they present to you. Those of you who've been reading Oahspe for years never heard this, that Newbrough used the Egyptian rites simply to promote Oahspe, which is like the opposite of what he should have been doing. And why did he do it? Because he's a Mason. Masons like this kind of thing. It makes them feel like they're the chosen of the Creator. It makes them feel like they're the Creator themselves. This is another episode. I'm going to read it. It involves Newbrough and his wife, and there was trouble there. Again, this gentleman, this professional writer, is simply giving us some insight into what's been going on, which you don't get normally through anyone who's been associated with the Oahspe Lodges. I will read. Other members of the lodge, among them the above-named J family, busied themselves in obtaining inmates for their spiritual nursery and taking advantage of advertisements for adoption in the New York Herald, bought 3 or 4 babes at $6 apiece who were all installed in the same confined room. This is the apartment that Newbrough bought for his mistress, Miss Sweet. Soon, however, the experience of Miss Frances Vandewater Sweet at raising babies and the inconvenience of crowding 4 or 5 infants in a small third-story room became apparent to Mrs. J. and her friends, all of whom were contributing to defray the expenses of the lodge and of the home, and were lending, in a spirit of disinterested benevolence, their personal help in taking care of the foundlings. The manner in which the matron received their suggestions and counsels created friction and contention to such an extent that it was found necessary to communicate the grievances to the body of the lodge at one of its business meetings. But behold the result. To the astonishment of many, instead of investigating the matter in due form, Dr. Newbrough, moved by the all-light, suddenly arose and addressed the lady's complainant in such an insulting and brutal manner that they immediately left the meeting and in utter disgust succeeded from the lodge, and they were not the only ones. That was an example of Newbrough being in conflict with people, and this is all happening also while Newbrough was staying with the Thompsons. And basically, Newbrough disingenuously states that he believes the farm already belongs to him, which is ridiculous because it was based on the condition that Newbrough could run the farm for 2 years without any trouble. You know, he couldn't even make it last a month. And so Newbrough writes to Mr. Bates, he says, 2 causes I discover. His and his wife's previous record were known to one of our members, and they feared he'd let the cat out of the bag. Case number 2 was Mrs. Thompson's spirit controls are opposed to temperance, vegetarianism, and education. So Mr. Newbrough is slandering her. Maybe she had a drink now and then, and maybe she wasn't a vegetarian, and maybe they didn't agree about how children should be raised educationally. But he used those disagreements as a case for blaming her for not giving the land directly to them immediately, and not giving the land directly to Mr. Newbrough. Newbrough's finding excuses to blame the Thompsons. He's saying basically, hey, there's something going on here that is wrong about Miss Thompson, and that is the guy she's with right now, it's not her real husband, which is true. Her husband had died decades earlier, and for some legal reason she didn't want to get married because she wanted to keep control of all the finances that she had with her first husband. Now that's her business, and it should in no way be a factor for Newbrough to blame her for not giving her the land, giving the farm to him immediately, especially when he's misrepresenting to the world that there is no condition for 2 years of proof that he could run the farm successfully. It's very unfair. Newbrough writes in another letter, July 11th, 1883, "We must not look to the rich, but rely on ourselves. This is lesson number 1. Of course, Newbrough has spent a lot of time with rich people. He had made a fortune prospecting for gold in California and in Australia, and so he had become wealthy himself. And he rubbed elbows with a lot of the affluent spiritualism leaders of the day, and that included Miss Thompson. And of course, he's disappointed with Miss Thompson not giving the land to him. And well, it's only been a month, so he seems like a deluded kind of demented kind of person. If someone tells you you're going to have to work this land for 2 years, and you go straight off and publish a letter to the world in the newspapers that says basically, hey, we own this land, please join us. Well, it's a lie. It's more deception. And it's very unfair. And to blame them because you're just going to be pig-headed and dishonest about the whole thing. And of course, Newbrough would go on to take money from Mr. Holland. And so he didn't even follow this lesson. I mean, he's always looked to the rich. I mean, the kindergarten homes was a plea for the rich. Miss Thompson was getting her money, and Mr. Holland would be the same thing. Okay, another episode in dishonesty. I think the guy enjoys it, really. And this is a letter, July 22nd. I'm not sure to who it's addressed at the moment. But the problem is that the letter signed respectfully yours, S. Abrams. And S. Abrams, along with Mr. Lockwood, were the first two editors of Oahspe. And of course, Lockwood was a terrible choice since he was a degenerate, serial rapist. But no one really knew who S. Abrams was. No, there's never been any evidence of it, and the people in the Oahspe community are completely dumbfounded by it. But it's pretty obvious that it was him. I mean, who else is going to edit Oahspe other than the guy who stole it from a fellow Mason who still don't know the origin of Oahspe in its full, true origin. But Newbrough wouldn't dare put himself as the editor of Oahspe. He didn't channel it anyway, as I've proven already. But he wanted to have another excuse if things went bad, that he could blame this fake imaginary person, S. Abrams. If anything he messed up in Oahspe went wrong, he's just going to blame S. Abrams, who doesn't exist. And so he was writing letters from the farm, even though men were not supposed to live there anymore, and he signed it S. Abrams. And even in the letter, and it was mailed by him, according to the imaginary person. It was mailed by Mr. Newbrough. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, July 22nd. It hasn't even been 2 months, and the Thompsons can't take it anymore, and they say, get out of here. So they threw Newbrough and everyone out of their Thompson farm for several reasons. One, the sexual harassment by the men who originally came with Mr. Newbrough, and especially Mr. Lockwood. The sexual harassment was a very big no-no mistake. And the second point was things were being stolen from the Thompsons. And so, I mean, obviously, if someone's living in your home, your house, not just using your farm, but they're living in your very home, your house, which is really generous of the Thompsons to allow. Of course, they had a fairly big home, having built a very expensive farmhouse, but that doesn't mean they can afford to let things be stolen from them. And there's no reason for the Thompsons to lie about it. And of course, just the very act of claiming that the land now belongs to publicly announce, you invite someone to their home and then someone publicly announces to the world that they themselves own the land and you don't, which is a complete lie. So that alone would be grounds to throw them out, in my opinion, but they have a lot more patience than I would. Sexual harassment, false claim of ownership, and then stealing things in the house. So they said goodbye. After Newbrough had left, and of course the babies were given up to other homes, Newbrough wasn't going to keep the children because they're inconvenient to keep, I suppose, which doesn't make any sense to me because I thought the whole purpose of all of this was to raise children with a special spiritual education. And if you're going to give up on the project as soon as things get a little convenient, then I guess that means you don't really have what it takes to make things work, which was the exact case. Newbrough wanted glory and fame and power, but he didn't want to do the hard thing, the hard work. Taking care of the children was hard work. So he put them, he didn't throw them on the street, but he put them to found people to take the children. At any rate, this is August 11th, and he writes another letter. And I was struck by a quote where he says, "Is not gold just as valuable whether dug by a Negro or a white man?" And it had something to do with how advanced the spirits. He was trying to say that Oahspe was gold. Therefore, who cares who wrote it? It doesn't matter whether it was a white person or a black person. But the problem is, if you bring up the comparison between white and black, it means the white man is good, the Negro is not so good. But who cares if you get gold out of it? The high and the low. The white man's high, the Negro's low. This is a racist statement. Not obvious to everyone, but there's no reason to make up this comparison unless you're racist. One of the common tricks by Newbrough was to send letters, write articles for spiritualism journals such as the Banner of Light or the Mind and Matter, and do so under a pseudonym or not giving his true name. And we have now a case of that where he got caught at it, and he did everything in such a stupid way that one of the readers, an educated person called J.F. June-Sept, who could not get his findings printed in the Banner of Light, so he went to the Mind and Matter to have it printed. And it was printed September 15th, 1883. I mean, you can read this on your own as you will, but if I could summarize it quickly, basically he looked at a very pro-Oahspe letter to the editor, and he wanted to meet this person, and the person's name, Salomon, the address was given as the same as that of John Newbrough's apartment for his mistress. Okay, so what happens? He wants to meet this guy, so he goes to Newbrough's office, and he finds out this person is like a 15-year-old boy who could never have written a letter with the very advanced spiritual knowledge that Newbrough was showing in the letter promoting and praising Oahspe. And so this is a case of dishonesty. So Newbrough was obviously stupid enough to use the name of an office boy who worked for him and the same address. I guess, I don't know what he thought how that would be safe to do, but he did. So June-Sept went to the office and searched, and he found the boy. And again, it's very disturbing to see that Newbrough used the name of an office boy to write his own letters to the editor praising Oahspe. And so his lie was discovered. And this is, again, a series of lies. If I were to list all the lies so far discovered through my research, I don't know how many it would be. It isn't just a lie, it's just deceptive. It's publicly deceiving people about what is true and what is not true. And this is another case where he has no moral discretion, he has no moral quality to refrain from being dishonest to the world. And obviously, if you look at everything he does, each step of the way, I mean, you'll commit adultery, you'll kick out servants who are black because you don't want blacks working for you. You'll take money from your followers, and you'll take land, and you won't give it back when they find out that you were lying about the ownership of Shalom, even though they said the people who joined would be getting a part ownership. So this guy is a serial con man and someone who never wrote. He claimed to write, he claimed to channel Oahspe, which is a complete lie, since he kept changing his story so much. So I want the world to know Newbrough is a fraud, a serial fraud. The situation is Newbrough's been kicked out of the Thompson farm. He's staying with some followers in their home, and he's writing more letters to his friend Mr. Bates, and basically he's complaining against his followers. And the one thing you can notice is that everyone's a bit off, that the words they speak aren't really the words you'd expect people who are spiritually attuned to say. In fact, it seems as if they're slightly going crazy, which is not an unusual thing. If you look through the history of the Oahspe lodges, there's a lot of people that just were weird. That's what happens when you have spirit possession. When you perform these rites and connect to the lower realms, the dark spirits have control of your mind, and you're going to say and do and believe things which are really strange, dark, and even evil at times. One of them with problems with Dr. Solansky, and he paraphrased something in Oahspe, and Newbrough got really upset. It was a public conflict that didn't have to happen. Too bad, isn't it? But Dr. Solansky had some sort of love interest within the group, and he asked Dr. Newbrough to help him win the heart of some woman, to lie to the woman that the angel said they should fall in love. Well, Dr. Newbrough's good at lying, but he didn't want to do it. And another woman said that the dark spirits, the Drusians, told her that Newbrough was to be her lover, her soulmate, and they should embrace, collapse, and melt together. I'd like to thank you for listening. Again, Oahspe is a wonderful book. Whatever else you take from these videos, please remember that. I'm just trying to set the Oahspe community straight on this Newbrough guy so we can clean up Oahspe, get him out, so Oahspe can be a clear channel to the higher heavens without any of his negativity around it. I pray the Creator bless each of you with love, harmony, and may real truth about Oahspe ever inspire you. Hello, dear seekers of truth and light. This video